Good morning. First of all, I will make my apologize. I'm just at Sberbank for 5 weeks, so my my Russian is not that good. So hopefully you will understand my English. But there will be room for questions. You can ask the question in Russian, and then I have some colleagues. They will help me to translate. Today, I would like to take you through transformations that I've done in the past at a large European bank called ING. But actually we now are doing within Sberbank here in Moscow and in Russia. I think this is a pretty unique event with so many people who really likes Agile and wants to learn more about Agile. There's something I have not seen before, so I think a big compliment to you. But also how it really lives here within Russia, that these type of methodologies could also be applied to Russian corporations as well. Many people think like, you cannot transform a traditional organization into a full Agile organization. Now, I hope with this presentation, you actually get a little bit different opinion there, and maybe you learn also a little bit what you need to do to transform a traditional organization into a more Agile organization. For me, it's very important that everybody understand that Agile is not an objective. It's always a mean. And what do I mean with that? It always supports the strategy of the company. If the strategy of the company is, we need to become Agile, do me a huge favor, stop immediately. Because that will never happen. A strategy about Agile, that's not good. It is more the way of work, the culture that is needed, the culture that's required with everything included, that should support always the corporate strategy. So let's start with a couple of trends that I've seen, in the European market, but also in the global markets, and hopefully you recognize also here in the Russian market as well. First of all, I think it is fair to say you need to transform literally every day. If you feel like in your company that you should not transform, so you stand still, I think you lose market, you lose your customers. That is definitely not good. So if you know Winston Churchill, there's a guy who literally lived years and years and years ago, but he actually also said, you need to be able to transform, and these days it goes even faster than before. Here are a couple of facts. These facts are not European, these facts are global, and probably a couple of them you don't say recognize. But the good thing is here, within the last 2 years, 90% of all data in the world has been generated just in the last 2 years. It's amazing, right? The second one is, of course, the use of mobile becomes more and more important. In Europe, more transactions in the bank will go through the mobile app instead of the internet. 5 years ago, there was no mobile app at all in Europe. So just to give you an idea how fast it will go. The third one is always a funny one. I have 2 kids. And when I saw this fact, then actually I went to my son. He's 17 years old. I said, Tom, listen, is this true? 150 times a day that you check your mobile phone? Is that not a little bit too much? And of course, he was saying, no, Daddy, don't worry about it. I'm not doing this. I said, all right, do me a favor, check. Within 6 hours, he came back to me and said, sorry, I actually crossed it already. The mobile phone is part of our body now. So if you think you do not check your mobile phone 150 times a day, believe me, do yourself a favor, start checking it. You will definitely increase the number by much more. Also social networks. Social networks becomes more and more important. It really differs country by country. So the country where I'm from Holland, which is probably you know Amsterdam, so that's the good thing. In Holland, it is very important social networks. But for example, just one country south, Belgium, there's no social network. So it is very cultural driven, but it is really important in our lives now to move on. And why is this so important? If you work for a financial institution, and I work for 22 years now in the financial industry, we sometimes believe that banks are different than, for example, Google or Netflix or Spotify, etc., all those major companies. But quite honestly, those clients are exactly the same. They are a client from Sberbank, but they're also a client from Yandex, or they're also a client from Alibaba. And the interesting thing there is that those players actually are setting the bar in behavior for us. Because if you have a perfect service at Alibaba or at Yandex, why should you get a different service from Sberbank? You should not, because that is something that's very normal, very common. I always give the example like, why can you buy something very expensive at, for example, Alibaba in 3 clicks? And why should you take so much more questions just to open a savings account at a bank? You should not, right? The bar and the level and the behavior are set by those digital innovators. Now, a couple of things I think probably also apply to your business. Clients expect everything should be simple and intuitive. So if you're on the mobile, if you're on the mobile app, you just need to have, you can buy stuff with your thumb. So don't come up with very difficult questions, etc. It should be very, very easy. And I think a great example is, if you look at the Uber app, it is very simple, very intuitive, and you know who's coming, etc. It gives you on one screen all the information. The other one, I took the example of Netflix. We are going to an industry in the world where actually we will shift away from mass marketing. You really go to one-on-one marketing. Each individual, you as an individual, will become a segment. It's not the big segments where we talk about the mass and affluent and all that stuff. No, it really becomes one-on-one marketing. And that's why data is so crucial, and that's why the digital channels are so important. And that is something, if you start understanding that and play that game, then actually Agile will help you to really speed up the whole process of delivering those services as well. Now, the more you use, and this I think Netflix is a great example, the more you use, the better they can provide you relevant information and relevant propositions. So the name of the game will be in the future to generate relevant propositions. A third trend, I think, is very interesting also from the internet, right? Like maybe 2 years ago, if you buy something on the internet, it was very common that you get delivered within a week. We accepted that. Today, you go to an economy that if you order it before 12 o'clock, you expect it the same day. This is literally just 2 years ago. So that's why, for example, Amazon is trying to experiment with drones and all that stuff, because the behavior of our clients are different. Now, if this is normal for you as an individual, just go back to your own company and think and ask yourself, why should it take so long to deliver your service to your clients? Because why should be the expectation different if you're not in this type of business? The last one, and quite honestly, I think that's the toughest one. And the toughest one is really talking away from products into journeys. This is something you will probably hear maybe also in this conference, but from my experience, it sounds great, but it's not very simple to implement. And why is this? We train people in a certain way. So for example, in my case, at the bank, we have trained our people to be very good in a mortgage or in a savings product. The only thing is, a client is not interested in a mortgage. A client is interested in buying a house. And buying a house starts way before the mortgage, but actually it does not stop after they have closed the mortgage, but there's actually a whole period also after that. You need electricity, telephone, television, etc., etc. And to start thinking in journeys instead of products, it sounds very simple, but at least from my experience in the last, say, 3-4 years, it is not simple to change people. Maybe you need to have different type of people. Maybe you need to have people, for example, from the hotel industry in your company, even though you're in banking. Or with a medical background. Why? People with a medical background are very good in data, to analyze data. That is how they are, say, trained at university, etc. So the setting of type of people that you need in your organization will change over time. So when I start talking with Sberbank last year about, I think, an amazing vision, I was really intrigued. Being on the executive board of ING for almost 12 years, I was intrigued by the fact that the bank with this size was willing to make the jump into Agile. If you have 130 million clients, if you have 300,000 employees, and seen as a very big, concrete piece of bank, making this step, I think that tells something, right? That you don't need my words for this. I think it is amazing what Mr. Gref, who's the CEO of our company, really said, look, this is what we need to be ready for the future. So we start talking about it, and we came to the conclusion that maybe we as a team can help each other to really bring Sberbank into this step. Now again, I started on February 1st, and the team in Sbergile, how we call this whole program, started a year ago. They made a huge progress already, and now we start accelerating to the next level as well. And I just want to take you through what it takes to become Agile. This question, please do me a favor. Hopefully you can read English. Write this question down. This question is not from me. I got this question from the lead architect from Spotify in Stockholm. When I was there, when I was working for ING, I was really thrilled about this whole culture and the whole relaxation, the coolness, etc. of this building, about the people, etc. I really strongly believed that this was really something for us that we can do as well. So I was pretty pumped up. I was very like, okay, we can do this. And then actually this guy said, Bart, please, come here. I see what you're doing. I see that you're extremely happy and excited, but please do yourself a favor. Ask yourself this question. How much are you willing to give up? And honestly, it was a dark day in Stockholm, a little bit like sometimes Moscow, to be honest. But it was like, okay, I understand what this question is, but what does it really mean? I'm now 3 years later. This question every day is valid. And why it is so important, why do you see many transformations fail in traditional organizations? Because management, but literally everyone, don't want to give up what they have today. And those are little things, but I will show you according to 4 big pieces what you should say at least give up to move into an agile world. Again, agile is not just a way of work. Agile is a holistic view on everything, what you do, what you eat, what you drink, what you breathe, everything. And that every day, again and again and again. So what we have done, so we were excited. We went to all these companies that you have seen. And the interesting thing is, and that's maybe not new for you guys, but it's something they have in common. They look totally different from the outside. But if you look what they do, they follow the 12 principles of Agile Manifesto. So if you go on the internet and you type in agilemanifesto.org, you will see those 12 principles. Those 12 principles, many people forget, they actually, sorry, somebody? Oh, okay. Somebody will say, look, it's a menu card. I like number 1, I like number 7, but please, it is not. You need to do all of them. All of those principles you need to apply. And of course, sometimes you have to focus a little more on the one than on the other. But you need to use all those 12 principles. And that's something we're going to do here at Sberbank as well. Now, before I go into the details, I will show you what the model is that we're going to create. And actually, it's based on the model that we have created in ING. And I tell you, it's still, keep in mind, it's a bank. This model, what I've created at ING, is running for almost 3 years. It's still there. It performs extremely well. Based on measurements of velocity, of time to market, but also empowerment of people. And this gives you a little bit of an idea. So it takes you for like 5 minutes, relax, but it is hopefully a nice movie. And I try to put it on.
The world around us is changing rapidly, and the change is driven by technology. Clients have an increasing number of options in contacting those they do business with. Businesses that must be available 24/7 and provide relevant, top-notch, personal service. That applies to all commercial enterprises, including banks. Digital innovators such as Spotify and Netflix are at the forefront of such developments when it comes to tailoring their service to client needs. They have a clear concept of corporate culture and a defined approach to collaboration processes. They believe firmly in the methodology called Agile. For ING, they are important sources of inspiration in establishing a new way of working together, a new level of servicing clients. The new way of working calls for quicker reactions to changing client needs, less interdepartmental passing of the baton, fewer coordination meetings, more room for initiative, and higher levels of responsibilities for teams and individuals. So, how does it work? The fundamental unit in our future head office organization is the squad. Squads are self-steering, autonomous teams of up to 9 people, responsible end-to-end for their own specific customer-related mission. Squads are built around different disciplines, different areas of expertise, and different backgrounds. For example, the squad mortgage application concerns itself with developing and implementing the most customer-friendly and most efficient way of moving from first mortgage submission to final approval. And the squad search engine is dedicated to developing the most customer-friendly and effective search engine for our various digital channels. In squads, you can expect to find colleagues from marketing, product management, formula management, data analysis, user experience, and IT. Sometimes more of the one or more of the other, depending on the nature of the squad's mission. Within each squad, product ownership is assigned to one squad member. This product owner is responsible for what a squad does, is in charge of the backlog and to-do list, and determines priorities. This does not mean the product owner is the boss. Coordination between members of the same discipline takes place inside chapters. There is, for example, a chapter Data Analytics, a chapter Customer Journey Mortgages, a chapter Products Management Processes. Chapters determine how jobs should be tackled. The chapter lead is ultimately responsible for this and also represents the hierarchy for squad members, taking responsibility for personal development, coaching, and the performance management cycle of individual squad members. The chapter lead will perform these duties in addition to their regular day-to-day job in their own squad. But if squads are self-steering and autonomous, how can we ensure coordination between squads? That is where tribes come in. A tribe is a collection of squads with interconnected missions. There is a tribe securities and private banking, a tribe mortgage services, etc. As a rule, a tribe contains fewer than 150 people, coordinated by the tribe lead, who, although not the traditional boss of all tribe members, ensures that knowledge and insights are shared, establishes priorities, and allocates available budgets. The tribe lead also forms the interface with other tribes. And that's it. Well, almost. There is one more vital role, that of Agile coach, the person who coaches individuals and squads and who helps them to grow and prosper. That, in a nutshell, is how most of ING head office will function in the future. Most, but not all. The Agile approach involves flexibility in adapting to the needs of the moment. The forming of tribes is very much a tailor-made thing, dependent on specific goals and circumstances. And that is an approach that may not suit all business functions, and so a degree of trial and error will help us establish what does and does not work in practice. The Agile approach is in itself agile and not cast in iron. That is what makes it such a valuable tool in achieving our goals.
All right. We still talk about the bank. But actually, even a bank you can transform, even a bank of more than 100 years old, you can transform really in an agile organization. We started the journey at the head office, so really like what most of the people call product management, marketing, and IT, really bring them together, but actually we moved forward. And actually we moved also into the operations area. So really look in companies like Zappos, which is a shoe-selling company, has nothing to do with banking. We actually looked at their model and figured out how can we apply that to our operational model in the day-to-day operations in the bank. And that's something we're also going to do within Sberbank. We go back to the question, what are you willing to give up? And of course, everybody will say, yes, it should start at leadership. You should start from the top. I'm not disagreeing with that, make that clear. But it's again, it's not just the leaders need to give up, it's literally everyone. But let's start at the leaders. These are examples that maybe you recognize, maybe you don't recognize in your company. But what you should give up at least is the traditional hierarchy. Now, if you work in a financial institution, you all know that is a lot of hierarchy involved, right? So you should give this up. At ING, with only 3 layers, that's it. From the executive board all the way down, 3 layers, that's it. So you give people a lot of responsibility there. I'm not sure how it's in your company, but at least also in Sberbank, but also at ING, maybe it's more financials. We love meetings. Love meetings. Especially meetings with 14 people and more, those are the best ones. Not from an effective standpoint, but it is nice because we see so many people. I see a lot of people laughing. I'm not sure because you recognize it in your own company, but believe me, maybe it's just the company that I work for, but you need to get rid of the meetings. Literally, on June 15, 2015, at ING, there were no meetings, 0. Of course, we had a board meeting and a risk meeting, that was it. But the teams, we didn't have the formal meetings. Did you ever had an idea how many hours a week you save with this and what you can do with this. The only thing is you need to give up. Of course, you need to get something in return, don't worry, because you still need to communicate, but it is not this official meeting with so many people in there. Maybe also, it sounds a little bit like a joke, but unfortunately it is the truth as well. If I was in a meeting, then unfortunately, the people who really know the content was not in the meeting. Their bosses were in the meeting. But the bosses didn't know anything. So what happens? They had a pre-meeting, because else the boss looked like a fool, right? So they had a pre-meeting. Now, then the bad thing is, I'm working in banking so long, so I know the content pretty well. So if I understand what is happening and I ask a question, then really trouble started, because the boss was not informed on that question. So he said, Bart, good question, let me check for you. So we have a meeting after that with the same guy again. And then actually I got an email where I need to respond also. So this whole meeting of 14 people was worthless, no decision taken because we didn't know. And actually the real guy who was knowing the information was frustrated because he felt like my boss doesn't know anything. So why is he going? Why can I not come? So it's a little bit more, maybe you recognize, but at least in the companies that I work is. Another thing is that you need to give up is input steering. And that's quite honestly for many managers, including myself. I was really, loved the input, so I really liked the content, so I was steering on the input. And that was for me personally a pretty big step to really go into what you say, look, go for the output steering. So, what do you get instead? First of all, you need to really start from a leadership, get the right people. Agile, and it sounds very bold, but Agile is not for everyone. That does not mean that you're bad, but this way of work, this type of freedom, is not for everyone. You can still be a very good colleague, but don't start working in Agile if you don't fit in this type of culture. I made some mistakes there. We thought like, oh no, we cannot let this person go because he's so knowledgeable, he knows so much about this content. 6 months later, he was gone. So do yourself a big favor, don't make this same mistake there. It's really about empowering people. It is really about giving people responsibilities. And here comes the trick. Giving people responsibility does not mean automatically that they will take the responsibility, especially not from a traditional organization. Because we have trained people from input, so we will give quote unquote more an order. So on one day, then we said, no, it's all yours. Don't expect that people immediately will take this responsibility. It takes some time to get there, okay? So you should focus on output. And the crucial thing about output is you need to measure everything. Literally everything. And it starts, of course, with setting. You saw the squads. They need to start with a purpose. And a purpose is very, very crucial. A purpose is not about functionality. I don't care. So if you say, look, I want to build a new functionality on my mobile app. Sorry, I don't care. What I want to know is how many new clients are going to use it. What do you say? What should be like the NPS? How do they really like it? Yes or no? That's something you need to have an ambition level up front, which is easy to measure. And you need to be transparent if you reach that level, yes or no. Now the good thing, if you want to learn something from Google, they have a pretty clear view on this. If you as a team always meet your ambition, you're not ambitious enough. So it is not about punishment, but it's like reach this level of ambition and try to make it better and better and better. Now this is something also that should fit in the culture or should you bring in the culture. And the last, but I think that's very crucial, and I'll try to explain this with soccer. I know that Russia is also big in soccer, so that's good. It is about finding the balance between, on one hand, alignment, and on the other hand, autonomy for the teams. Alignment, what I mean with alignment is, if you look at this example, if you play soccer on a field without any lines, it will be chaos, right? Everybody will run around, etc. There are no rules, there's nothing. If you go to a traditional soccer field, you can do it also with tennis. Everybody knows those lines and what those lines mean. And if you start in Agile, please do yourself a favor, set those lines clear. So about ceremonies. Those ceremonies is not something voluntary. You need to do those ceremonies because if you want to increase your velocity in your teams, you need to have those ceremonies. And don't say, yeah, maybe today I will do the stand-up, but tomorrow I don't like it, so let's skip it. No. Please do. I've measured this with the Paris University INSEAD. There is a clear correlation between the ceremonies and the velocity and the output of the teams. Same, of course, with legal, compliance, and all that stuff. Those are the lines, the rules that is needed. The more people to get more mature, the thinner the lines will be. Okay? But at the beginning, it's very, very important to set clear those boundaries. HR becomes more and more important in an agile organization. Yes, we become more and more a tech company. Any company in the world will be a tech company at one point. The good news is they still rely on people. So that's the good news. Yes, we are more relying on technology, but technology needs to be built, so therefore you need people, so that's the good news. So HR is really in the center of an agile organization. If you come from a traditional organization, again, I do not know your organization, but in a normal organization, they love KPIs. I had a dashboard that looks like a Boeing 777, so many KPIs with average weight less than 1%, so I had no clue anymore what I was looking for, but quite honestly, I didn't care. Because I am not driven by KPIs. If you outperform every day, don't worry about it. So we actually changed it and we just went back to 5 KPIs. That's it. 3 on business, 2 on personal development. And actually, quite honestly, I have more focus on those last 2, on personal development, because in this agile organization, you need to be able to learn fast. And you can make mistakes, and you should make mistakes, but then you need to be able to learn. So if you can really make people better, I think that will be very positive for your organization as well. And again, what I said, even good people, if they don't fit, please don't hire them. Please don't. I made those mistakes there. So, what is very important? What did we do? First of all, we changed our traditional hiring process. So, when I was a board member at ING, I had 16 people reporting to me, flat organization. Normally, in normal organization was that I was hiring my own people. We changed it. My colleagues hired my people. We're still at the bank, okay? So if people are in shock, we're still in bank. So we went through a total peer-to-peer hiring in the entire organization. And why is it so important? The outcome was that you get better diversified teams, because I will always look for my type of people. Now, this whole team is totally different. It's much more diversified. Male, female, but also introvert, extrovert, analytical people, less analytical people. It's really well diversified. That's one. Secondly, you can imagine that you need to start trusting your colleagues, that they really allow you to get the best people from their perspective. That trust is very important if you want to work in a team. And you can imagine if you do this in the entire organization, you start trusting your colleagues much better. Because there's always something to blame. Yeah, they hired somebody else, etc., etc. Now they can do it. And the thirdly, what's very important, the hiring skill is something is very, very good in an agile organization. Because what are the 2 key elements of an interview is you need to listen well and you need to ask the right questions. And quite honestly, if you work in an agile team, that's perfect. Those 2 skill sets, I wish that everybody was able to have those. Because then actually you will start understanding each other much, much better, because you can ask the right question and you're willing to listen. Okay? Oh, sorry. We have a couple of things that we added to it, because we work in tribes, but you need to find some connections. That's what we used, and actually I reused it from Netflix. It's what we call the quarterly business reviews. It's like in 6 pages you write down what you as a tribe has done last quarter, what you should have done, and what is the delta and why, and explain why based on facts. And also you look into the coming quarter, what are you planning to do? And that's something you give to all the other tribes as well. They gave each other feedback, which is very important also within an agile organization, because giving feedback is not a given. There's something you need to learn as an organization, but that will be very helpful, because then also the whole organization will be transparent. We added also the last one, we took it from Zappos. Everybody goes through the same onboarding program, literally everyone, from the board to the IT, the engineer, to people in operations, because you need to create this informal network there. Communication, number 3. Communication, I know it's everybody will tell you it's very important, but I still see many people make the same mistake. Agile people, a lot of people think that Agile is a cost program. Please, it is not. Yes, you can work with less people, that's for sure, but quite honestly, there's nothing to do with cost. If you want to communicate about this, please go back to the purpose. Why do you want to go there? What is the strategy of your company? And make that for everyone crystal clear. Because everybody is a smart person. And if everyone knows what your target is, what your purpose is, they know where to go to. If you only focus on cost, because that's actually what many companies does, they communicate about cost, then quite honestly, it will not be very inspiring. So please focus on the purpose there. But also then be very transparent in successes, everybody does, but then also on the failures. And that's everything that everybody really hates. But the thing is, I think it's so crucial that if you can be open in failures, then actually you create this culture that is very, very good. I think the best example I had actually at the visit at Spotify, this lead architect told me, said, because I said, yeah, sure, about failures, and coming from the bank, it's like, we don't talk about failures. He said, look, Bart, the first day an engineer came to Spotify, he was able to bring down the global site of Spotify down in that first day. So I was like, oops, so he is fired? He said, no, Bart, he is actually promoted. I was a little bit in shock. I was like, sorry, what do you mean? He said, look, the uniqueness of this guy is actually he found a weak spot in the software that nobody else found, and he actually found it on the first day. So therefore, he actually got promoted. And literally, he got promoted, but not only like money-wise, no, everybody in the company knew who this guy was on day one. So it tells something about the culture, but it tells also something about how do you need to deal with failures. Failures is not to punish. Failures is about what can you learn from it so that you will not make the second time the same mistake. You need to communicate, and one thing I've learned, and quite honestly, that's something we did not do well, is you need to repeat. If you build an organization like this, please repeat every 6 months at least, why are the certain roles there? Because people are going back to the old traditional way, because we have trained them, again, so long in a certain way. Please repeat why you are doing this. Focus on the why, not on the how, but on the why, because that will help you to focus as well. And then last but not least, and that's for me as a pure mathematical guy, always a little bit like fluffy. Oh, now we talk about culture. So that's like, ooh, here we go. But quite honestly, I understand now much better how important the culture of a company is. And this is not like theory or books. No, this is really practical. Any company has a lot of silos. Silos are not good for Agile, because Agile, what you want to achieve, is end-to-end responsibility. Silos will never give you end-to-end, never. So you need to break down those silos, and that is only possible when people are giving up their big egos. And of course, everybody has an ego. I got an ego, don't worry. But you need to really look into the bigger picture of the company and make it really good. But silos are not very helpful if you go there. What other thing is, like, if people go to Agile, and actually that was one of the big discussions I had with the regulators, when they heard that we were going to Agile, they were not happy. Because the perception was, Agile is chaos. Now, Agile is totally not chaos. You will create the most transparent organization ever, but the first reaction is, oh, you need to have more controls. Please do yourself a favor. If you have a good control framework today, don't change it. Just check it, of course, but don't change it, because that is not needed. Yeah? So don't add more controls in it, because then you will actually tend to go to the old situation, and then you create also, again, this bureaucracy. Bureaucracy about these policies, about the approvals, etc., it's amazing. Quite honestly, I just give you, in these 5 weeks, I actually redesigned one of the processes within Sberbank, and it's just about the desktop. It's just, if you hire somebody, then you, of course you need a computer, right? Desktop or a laptop. It's amazing how many people are involved. It's amazing, but also how many controls are there and how many approvals you need. I come from maybe a very small, simple country, but if you hire somebody, then at least you can think about that they need a computer, right? So I will say, if you hire somebody, you have already the approval for a desktop. Now, unfortunately, in any big company, you will see we have still, from the legacy, many controls and many approvals processes still there. Please take them out, because it will not help the culture that you need. So what do you get instead? What I started with, if you go to Agile, or if you're in Agile, please keep your eyes open, because everything what you do needs to support Agile. And again, Agile is not a myth. Agile has a lot of good things and sometimes has also some negative things. Doesn't worry. You need to learn, okay? That's also what the movie tells. You go up and you go down, and that's something that's very crucial. But you need to do it holistically. You cannot just say, okay, let's do this organizational structure and you're done. It doesn't work. It is really about compensation. It's about communication. It's about hiring, firing. It's about the building. Don't underestimate the building. I think a pretty good example. In the building, in normal office building, traditional office buildings, you have an elevator, right? What is happening in an elevator? You just push the button, and then you look at your shoes. You have no idea who's standing in the elevator, and there's definitely no contact. Definitely not in the morning. I'm not sure about your morning temper, but Sometimes in the elevators, I wish I was not there, right? So there's so many people with a bad temper. So you will not build an informal network. So what we have created is actually we start building stairs in the building. Why? Because actually people start moving. And that is something you need to have. You need to have movement in your building, because if everyone goes to the same department every day again, then you have Agile in this department, but not Agile in your organization. So keep that in mind, that even the building is very, very crucial to get it done. It's of course about behaviors. You need to set your behaviors, and of course you can use the ones you have, but also please check those. Are they really supporting the culture that you need? Yes or no? And last but not least, Agile is also fun. And sometimes I see people so serious that it's like, look, life is too short. You need to have fun as well. You work very close with each other, and I think that's pretty unique because you bring business and IT together, which are just in essence different type of people, which is good. But look, also create some fun. And you can do it in many events, you can do it many ways, but always have in mind, create this informal network. Because again, remember, we didn't have the meetings anymore, so you need to have something in return. So I think the company is called Zappos. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but it's a shoe-selling company. Go on YouTube. They have fantastic movies about the company, and I've been there. What you see there, you cannot believe it, that it's an office, but it's truly there. And actually what they have done there is actually they have this internal LinkedIn. Each individual there is linked to people. And if they create something like an event and they see Bart is not connected, for example, with the legal department, they will make sure that I will say have a buddy now during this event from legal. Why? Because they believe that if I have a legal question, I can always call him. Maybe he's not the right person, but he will help me to get the right answer. And that's, I think, is a great philosophy how you can do it. So to summarize, and then open for questions. This is the road to Agile. And probably if you're in Agile, you probably recognize it. And the good thing is, there is a starting point, but there's not an end. Because if you think you're at the end, there's a new horizon there. So that's the funny thing. So I think that's what I like. I think it will help you really to get inspired from outside your industry. Don't look at your competitors. If you look at your competitors, that's what in the financial industry was very normal, very common, you will not innovate. Please take those companies where they need to fight every day for clients. Those companies need to be your focus point. Because they need to fight, like for example in Alibaba or in Amazon, they need to do everything every day again because the switching is very simple. In banking you do not switch that much, but maybe in your industry also. So I think that's very important. Agile is not only IT. I hear too many people say, oh yeah, Bart, we're Agile, and they call about IT. Agile is not IT. Agile is end-to-end, and IT is never end-to-end. So it's always business involved. And you will really see, if you combine those, you will really speed up. So partial Agile does not exist. We talked about selecting the right people. Agile, again, is not for everyone. And again, it has nothing to do with quality of people, but it has to do you fit in this type of way of work, yes or no? And of course, people can learn. I learned. Look, if you asked me 4 years ago about Agile, probably I'd start laughing. I was like, yeah, sure. Now, I'm seriously a big believer that it can really help to serve your strategy. You need to innovate, but you need to fail fast. So if you don't have a culture where you can fail, I will say don't start. Because it will never happen. If people get punished, then the next time they will not give you the information, it will not become transparent, you will not get there. Right? So you need to become more and more an entrepreneur. And last but not least, it is fun, you need to enjoy it, you can experiment, and you need to measure, and really share it with each other so that you really become one big team like you are today. So thank you very much, and hopefully, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Bart. Друзья, у нас есть пара микрофонов, вот здесь и здесь. Вы можете подходить и спрашивать. Не стесняйтесь спрашивать по-русски, если вам неудобно по-английски. Вам помогут перевести ваш вопрос.
Okay, the first question is coming from here.
Oh.
Bart, okay, first of all, welcome to Russia.
Thank you.
Hope you will enjoy. Less sun and maybe less tulips than Holland, but anyways.
We have a lot of rain.
Yeah. So anyways, I represent not banking. I represent the big French company. We have a lot of plants in Russia, and we just started this Agile map. And actually, what you're talking about was interesting to me because I represent HR. I'm HR partner, and we are building up now the Agile teams. So many times you mentioned like right people. So from your point of view, what is the best agile profile? That's my first question. And my second question is that, okay, I'm a bit, not sure in agile yet. So maybe you can prove it with some numbers, how ING Bank, because it's really a fundamental bank in Holland. So how it changed in numbers, in customers, in profit, whatever you can share with us, because, okay, maybe you have some private information you cannot share, but maybe some numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. So your first question, who are the right people? That's of course a very tough question because you have different roles, and for different roles you have a different profile. I think in general, I think you need to be a team player. If you're not a team player, don't start. You can be a specialist, that's fine, that's absolutely preferable. But there's also, for example, on the engineering side, you have like the developers and you have the engineers. There are also a lot of support there. Personally, I will say get rid of all the support because you don't need them. You need to have the people who are able to really to bring in a squad end-to-end delivery. Agile coaches are pretty tough because my hypothesis when we started was the management, the former management was able to become agile coach. Believe me, not. Only 20% reached that target and actually the rest not. And the main reason was that in banking, at least in our bank, was the case that actually managers were in a managed position because they want to promote to a higher level. Are they really interested in people and are they really want to make better teams because that's what an agile coach should do? Actually, it turns out not. So the whole culture part was really failing for them. So that was for me a little bit surprise, but I think that's how it is. So for me, that's really the most crucial things. If you're a team player, if you fit in the culture, if you want to learn, I think then you have a big chance to do it. The most difficult part will be the middle management. Middle management is really blocking agile. So what we have done is we took out just the whole middle management layer because quite honestly, and of course sometimes they got a different job, but not like in a traditional way anymore, because those are really blocking. And quite honestly, if you're honest to your own company today, you probably recognize as well. If you want to communicate from the top to the bottom, actually it has been like all these layers are, say, filters. So if you say A, you should not be surprised that Z is at the bottom, right? So they just change the story to the area that they like. Okay, that's a little bit on the people side. Some measurements. First of all, I do not believe that Agile will have a direct link to profitability because it is very tough to say, is it really become more profitable or not? Again, then Agile becomes like a cost thing, and that's, I think, should not be the purpose, the primary purpose there. What we have done at ING is like we had 4 big releases at the beginning to put stuff in production. They have over 3,000 a month now. So we went from 4 to 3. And believe me, if you think like they have all new systems, they don't. There's a lot of legacy in there. We are not in the cloud, but it's just a mentality. It's just a total difference in mentality. So that's one big number. If you look at empowerment, we have measured with INSEAD. Now you know INSEAD then. INSEAD is a Paris university, well known. We have measured them with them for a full year, so independently. And they measured on effectiveness, time to market, and empowerment of the people. All 3 went up, and significantly. So they have a ranking from 0 to 5. So the empowerment and time to market was actually at 4.2, and we came for 2.1. And actually the effectiveness, that was a little bit like 3.9, so there's still room to improve. And the reason is, because we're not in the cloud, especially on the technology side, there were still some handovers, so that was sometimes frustrating. So people didn't feel like it was really the effectiveness that we were hoping for, so there's still room to improve. But still, there's a huge amount. If you look at, for example, sick percentage, I think it's always interesting, especially also from HR. We had in some areas like 8%, and we went down in the total below 3%. In Holland, it's a very social country, we all know, especially in banking. People were used to work, say, 4 days, and because the labor law was there for the people who were 36 hours. You probably cannot imagine, but that is how it works in Holland. And then actually people say, oh, I will work 4 times 9. What happened actually is that people say, look, I want to come back on the 5th day as well, because I'm part of the team. We didn't push, because we cannot push, but it's actually that what was happening. Because they said, look, I'm now part of the team. They feel, in the old traditional organization, they were just one of the departments, and the departments are big. Now they are actually become one of the team. And just imagine that you play a team sport and you're not there, you feel guilty. And it's exactly what was happening here. Without push, without anything. So we had actually an issue on parking spots because people were not able to park the car anymore because too many people come with the car on this day off. Okay?
Welcome to Rush again. My name is Atomy. I'm from consulting, not from IT. And you know, in consulting, when we work with companies, KPIs is a big issue actually. So I just wanted to ask you, maybe tell something more what we get instead of KPIs and how we arrange it to the goal of the whole team for each person, because like it's a common question for us.
Okay,
Thank you.
Very good question. So normally what you do, and again, I'm not sure if that's only in the companies that I work with, but normally you will set your KPIs once a year. At ING, we did it always like in December, and normally, because I love to change, normally in February they were already worthless because my focus was something else. Did we change them? No, we did not. So every time I had 2 times a year an appraisal. So that was in July. So then I was sitting with my boss and I said, okay, Bart, what do you think? I said, now looking at my KPIs, I don't know because they're not relevant anymore, but you have done this. And actually there was always a way around. So in other words, those KPIs doesn't mean anything. And I quite honestly, I think I'm not the only one here. So what is important is you set a set of KPIs. Those are more the generic about the overall responsibility, the overall profitability, etc. But then I think what makes Agile so interesting is you have a continuous performance review. Why? Due to the ceremonies and due to the fact that you work in a purpose, or that you work in a squad with a purpose, and a purpose could be 3 weeks, could be 2 years, but you have always these sprints. After each sprint, first of all, you start with a ceremony, daily stand-up. Secondly, we have something that's called the POCLOC, Product Owner Chapter Lead Agile Coach. They talk about every week about the team. Is there an issue? Does somebody need to be changed? Does somebody need to have help? So there's a lot of input on the individual performance. So that's one. 2. Then third one is the retrospective. After each individual sprint, the team will sit down together with the Agile coach and reflect back. What have we done? On the content, did we do well? But also on the team effort. Like, did we act as a team well? So every, say, 2 to 3 weeks, you have this retrospective. Now, quite honestly, if you just take this whole combination, so you have a continuous 360, you will be able, also as a boss, in our case, the chapter lead, to be able to provide very good information to the individual to improve his skills and improve the person. So do you really need the KPIs? Again, I'm probably the worst here in this room. I don't like them at all, but do you need them? No, because if I have all those data points from those meetings, I have a better discussion with you about your performance than just twice a year or 4 times a year. Oh yeah, gee, let's do the appraisal. That is more this official thing. So we use this data in, of course, the official appraisals, because at the end you need to get an official reward, but it will never be a surprise, because you will have this continuous improvement cycle. Okay? Sure.
Друзья, у нас остался только один вопрос, но время потому что выходит, да, мы соблюдаем таймбоксы. Пожалуйста, и идем на перерыв.
Welcome to Russia once again.
That feels good.
And my personal thank you for your work in the ING. I was the client of ING in the Netherlands, and it was great. I was impressed by your front offices and mobile application. And my question is, what did you concretely do in the Sberbank to become more agile? I didn't realize it from the report.
So actually what we are doing now is, we use all the, say, experience that we have, and actually we are working now, we actually designed, I'm just 5 weeks here, so what we have done is we actually had already some tribes. We are now really designing the tribes like the model that I've done at ING as well. We are going to change this whole compensation thing. We are going to change the whole budgeting. We are going to change the way we communicate. So what we really start doing now within Sberbank is literally, but with the legacy of Sberbank, with the history of Sberbank, we create a new, and we call it Sbergile, we really create a new agile way of working within the bank in total. Retail and corporates, everything together.
I see, thank you.
Sure.
Окей.